There's a moment in every avoidance heart where silence stops being a defense and starts becoming peace. It's when they're no longer running from love but resting in it. And you, my friend, are the reason they stopped running. You see, avoidants don't fall in love the way others do. They don't crash into it. They walk into it quietly, carefully, step by step, testing if the ground will hold. They've known what it feels like for love to hurt, for closeness to feel like a trap. So when they finally stay, when they finally choose you, that choice is sacred. That's not convenience. That's forever. When an avoidance starts to open up, even in the smallest ways, when they let you see behind that calm mask, when they share a fear, a story, a piece of their inner world, that's their version of I love you. Because for them, love isn't about saying the words. It's about revealing what they've spent a lifetime hiding. Eber. You might not see their love in grand gestures. You might see it in presence, in how they listen, in how they check in after distance, in how they come back even after silence. That's not confusion. That's courage. Every time they return, they're fighting their own instinct to run. They're rewriting a story that told them closeness equals pain. And when they finally stay, not because they have to, but because they want to, that's the moment you know they love deeply. Because for an avoidant, love is not a comfort zone, it's a battlefield. And if they're still standing with you after the storm, it's because you've become something sacred to them, safety. They no longer see you as someone who wants to control them. They see you as someone who understands their need for freedom but still holds space for connection. You've become a mirror of peace. You've become the place where their fears go to rest. And here's the truth. When an avoidant truly loves you, it's not temporary, it's eternal. Their soul bonds in silence. But that silence carries more devotion than 1,000 promises. They'll love you in ways you'll feel more than see, in actions more than words, in time more than intensity. So if you're wondering, do they love me? Look at what they've chosen not to do. They didn't disappear, they didn't block you, they didn't close off forever. They stayed, maybe awkwardly, maybe quietly, but they stayed. That's not hesitation, that's healing in progress. Abrui. Sometimes the greatest sign of love isn't in a declaration, it's in presence. It's in their willingness to face discomfort and grow beside you. That's divine love. That's the kind of love that rebuilds souls, not just relationships. Because real love, the kind that transforms, is not about how loud you love. It's about how long you stay. And when an avoidant stays, when they stop running, when they trust, when they soften, they're telling you, you are my home. You are my peace. You are the one I choose. Forever. Eber, avoidants often confuse people because they don't express love in ways that are obvious or conventional. While most people use words, affection, and constant communication to express care, avoidants express their love through a quiet, steady sense of emotional safety. They may not flood your phone with messages or shower you with grand gestures, but they are deeply aware of the energy they create between you. Their love isn't about excitement. It's about consistency. They may not say, I love you as often as you'd like, but you'll feel it in how they show up, how they protect your peace, and how they quietly remain even when their instincts tell them to flee. To understand an avoidance way of loving, you have to step into their inner world, a world shaped by early experiences that taught them love could be unpredictable or unsafe. When you grow up believing closeness can hurt, you learn to survive by relying only on yourself. So when that person meets someone who feels safe enough to open up to, it's a revolution in their nervous system. They may not talk about it, but inside it feels like they're unlearning years of fear. Each small act of trust, each moment they don't withdraw, is a massive emotional milestone. Their love grows not in fireworks, but in quiet, invisible acts of bravery. When an avoidant truly cares, their focus is on not losing the emotional balance they've worked so hard to maintain. That's why they move slowly. It's not that they don't want connection. It's that they fear being swallowed by it. Love for them is not about passion alone. It's about safety. So when you notice them being consistent, checking in without being asked, offering help when you need it, or simply being present without trying to control or escape, those are powerful indicators that they're emotionally invested. That is how they say, I care about you, without words. Ibersivasi, avoidants express loyalty through stability. You might see them staying calm in moments when others would argue, or creating structure when emotions run high. They're not trying to be cold. They're trying to protect the connection by keeping it grounded. They believe that if they can make the environment peaceful, love can survive there. They love by managing energy, not just by showing emotion. It's their way of saying, you are safe with me, even when I can't say it out loud. You might notice that when you give them space, they start to come closer. Because space is not rejection to them, it's oxygen. When you respect their need to breathe, to process, to retreat and return on their own terms, you teach them that love doesn't have to mean control or loss of self. And that's when their heart begins to trust you. Once they feel emotionally safe, they start giving in small, authentic ways. Like remembering details about you, supporting your dreams, or choosing to stay during conflict instead of shutting down. Their love becomes clear in how they protect the bond. They may not chase, but they don't disappear. They may not always initiate, but they always respond. They show love by maintaining the bridge between you, no matter how fragile it feels. For an avoidant, staying is love. Choosing consistency over chaos is love. Choosing to listen rather than withdraw is love. They might not need you to understand every thought they have. They just need to know that your presence doesn't threaten their peace. And when they finally feel safe with you, their entire demeanor changes. They relax, they laugh more, they open up slowly, revealing glimpses of their inner self that they've kept hidden from everyone else. Those moments of vulnerability, those rare, quiet confessions or shared silences are where their love lives. Because when they stop protecting themselves from you, it's not just emotional safety they're creating anymore. It's emotional connection. That's when you know you're not just someone they like, you're someone they trust. And for an avoidant, that's the purest form of love there is. When an avoidant begins to choose presence over distance, it's a silent miracle. It's not something they announce or even fully understand themselves, but it's one of the most powerful transformations they can experience. For someone who has spent most of their life associating closeness with pain, choosing to stay emotionally available is an act of courage. It means they've reached a point where connection feels safer than escape, where love feels like a sanctuary instead of a threat. Every time they answer your message instead of retreating, every time they stay in the conversation when it starts to get uncomfortable, they are saying, without words, I want this, I want you. Avoidants aren't wired to move toward emotion. They've learned to protect themselves from it. Their instinct is to pull back when things get intense, to guard their autonomy like their life depends on it. So when you notice them choosing presence, being there when conflict arises, showing up even when it's inconvenient, staying connected after vulnerability, it's a sign of deep internal growth. It's love beginning to overpower fear. It's not easy for them. Their body still wants to run, their mind still whispers stories of rejection and entrapment, but their heart is starting to tell a different story, one of possibility, one of safety, one of devotion. Presence for an avoidant doesn't always look like constant interaction. Sometimes it looks like quiet consistency. They may not talk for hours, but they'll make sure you know they haven't disappeared. They'll keep you in their world in subtle ways, sharing something small from their day, responding faster than usual, or remembering something you mentioned. To someone unfamiliar with avoidant attachment, these might seem like small gestures. But to them, they are monumental. They represent a willingness to remain connected when the instinct says to pull away. That's love, expressed in their language. When avoidants begin to choose presence, it also means they're learning to trust the balance between freedom and connection. They've started to realize that being close to someone doesn't mean losing themselves. It means expanding. They begin to see love not as a cage, but as a mirror that reflects back their strength and worth. When they choose to stay during hard moments, when emotions rise, when misunderstandings happen, they are confronting the deepest fear they carry, the fear of being overwhelmed or consumed. Their choice to remain is a quiet revolution of the heart. It's easy to underestimate how significant that is, because to the avoidant, closeness has often meant danger. It has meant criticism, pressure, or loss of control. So every time they stay, they're rewriting that story. They're teaching their nervous system that love can be calm. That connection doesn't have to hurt. That emotional intimacy doesn't have to mean surrendering themselves. They're learning, through experience, that love can be something they participate in without losing who they are. And when they choose presence, you start to feel their energy shift. They start to lean in a little more. They start asking deeper questions, not out of obligation, but curiosity. They might not say, "I love you" easily, but you'll feel it in the way they listen, in the way they make space for your emotions without disappearing. Their love matures into presence, not the dramatic kind, but the stable, grounding kind that you can feel even in silence. This is where real intimacy begins, because presence is the foundation of true love. When someone stays, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, that's when relationships evolve from connection into communion. For an avoidant, this is the ultimate act of devotion. It's them saying, "I trust you enough to be seen." And when they reach that point, they're not running from love anymore. They're running toward it. So when you notice the avoidant choosing to stay, when they respond instead of retreat, when they talk instead of shut down, when they remain calm in moments that once made them panic, understand that you are witnessing their transformation. You are seeing them choose love over fear, connection over comfort, presence over protection. That's not just affection, that's evolution. It's the moment their soul whispers, "This person is worth the risk." When an avoidant allows vulnerability to exist, it's one of the most profound signs of love you'll ever witness. Vulnerability doesn't come naturally to them, it's something they've learned to avoid as a form of self-protection. To them, exposing their feelings feels like handing someone a weapon that could hurt them. So when they start to let you see what's beneath their calm surface, their fears, their insecurities, their unspoken stories, it means they trust you on a soul-deep level. They are stepping into emotional territory that once terrified them, and they redoing it because you've created an environment where they finally feel safe. Enough to unfold. For an avoidant, vulnerability isn't about dramatic confessions or emotional outpouring. It's often subtle, almost imperceptible. It might look like them sharing a small detail about their past, or admitting that they were hurt before, or showing you an emotion they usually hide. It could be something as simple as saying, "That really affected me," or letting you see them when they're not perfectly composed. Every one of those moments is sacred because it represents a quiet surrender. They're choosing authenticity over armor, and that choice doesn't come easily. You have to understand, for most avoidants, vulnerability has been associated with pain. Somewhere in their history, they learned that being open led to disappointment or rejection. They learned that showing need or emotion meant being judged or abandoned. So they built walls, not out of arrogance, but out of survival. Those walls became their home, their safety zone. When they start to lower them, it's not because they suddenly stop fearing pain, it's because they've begun to believe that love might not hurt this time. That belief is fragile, and it grows slowly, nurtured by consistency and gentleness. When they share their inner world with you, they're not just communicating facts, they're testing trust. They're asking silently, "Can I be seen and still be loved?" How you respond in those moments shapes everything. If you meet that vulnerability with empathy instead of pressure, with presence instead of reaction, something miraculous happens. The wall doesn't just come down for that moment. It begins to dissolve. You become a space where they can breathe, where they don't have to manage every emotion alone. And once they feel that kind of safety, they start to want it more. Over time, their vulnerability evolves. It moves from small admissions to deeper sharing. They might begin to express affection more openly, share dreams they've never spoken aloud, or even let you see them in pain without withdrawing. That's when you know they're no longer performing love. They're living it. Because vulnerability is the purest form of connection. It's the moment the soul says, "Here I am. This is me," without protection. When an avoidant reaches that stage, they begin to understand love isn't a threat. It's a healing space. They realize that being vulnerable doesn't mean losing control. It means gaining freedom. The freedom to be seen. The freedom to be human. The freedom to trust another heart without the constant need to retreat. This shift is deeply spiritual. It's not just emotional growth, it's soul work. It's the reclamation of their ability to connect. And in that space, their love becomes richer, deeper, and more authentic. They stop hiding behind logic and self-protection, and they start showing up as their whole selves. Their presence feels different, softer, warmer, more genuine. You can feel their walls lowering, not through words, but through energy. E no longer have to pretend they don't care, because now they know caring doesn't equal pain. That's the beauty of vulnerability in the avoidant heart. It's not about breaking them open. It's about giving them a reason to open themselves. It's about helping them see that love doesn't have to take. It can give, it can nurture, it can free. And when they reach that realization, when they finally let you in, they don't love halfway. They love completely, with a depth that's been waiting quietly for a safe place to belong. An avoidant lives with a deep inner conflict, the craving for closeness and the fear of losing themselves within it. They long for connection, but they also long for freedom. For them, love often feels like a double-edged sword, beautiful but dangerous, magnetic but overwhelming. They want intimacy, but they want it without the feeling of being controlled or consumed. So, when they begin to integrate freedom and connection, when they start to see that love can exist without losing autonomy, that's the moment their heart begins to heal. It's when they start to realize that love and independence can coexist, and that realization changes everything. When an avoidant first experiences love, their instinct is to protect their individuality at all costs. They associate closeness with pressure and distance with safety. But deep down, there's a longing for something more, something real. They don't just want passion, they want peace. They don't just want affection, they want understanding. They want to be with someone who doesn't try to fix or control them, but rather someone who sees their need for space as part of who they are, not as a rejection. When they find that, they begin to relax, they begin to open up. Love stops feeling like a trap and starts feeling like a choice. This shift happens quietly. You might notice that they begin to communicate more clearly, to stay longer in emotional conversations, or to initiate time together on their own terms. That's their way of saying, I'm safe here. For the first time, they can breathe inside a relationship without feeling like they have to escape to remember who they are. This balance between freedom and connection becomes their definition of true love, not something that demands, but something that expands. When they reach this stage, they start to discover that love isn't supposed to confine, it's supposed to liberate. It's not about merging into one identity, but about standing side by side as two complete beings who choose each other again and again. The avoidant begins to see that their fear of engulfment was never about love itself. It was about losing themselves in someone else's expectations. Once they experience love that respects their rhythm, they realize that intimacy can actually deepen their sense of self instead of erasing it. That's when they start wanting forever. Not out of dependency, but out of alignment. Their love becomes intentional. They no longer love a fear of loneliness. They love from a place of strength. They give without feeling drained. They connect without feeling cornered. And that's what makes their bond so powerful. It's rooted in freedom. Because freedom, to an avoidant, is the language of safety. When they feel they can breathe, they can love. When they feel accepted as they are, they start to show up more, stay longer, and invest deeper. You'll notice this in the way they honor both the connection and the individuality within it. They'll encourage your independence, celebrate your passions, and respect your boundaries. That's their way of saying, I see you as my equal, not my responsibility. In return, they hope for the same, that you'll understand their need for space isn't withdrawal, it's self-preservation. The beauty of loving an avoidant who has learned this balance is that they bring a rare steadiness to love. Their affection isn't impulsive, it's grounded. Their loyalty isn't loud, it's quiet, but unwavering. As they integrate freedom and connection, they begin to experience a new form of intimacy, one that's rooted in trust, not control. They stop measuring love by how close you are and start valuing how real you are. They begin to realize that the right connection doesn't take away their independence, it deepens it. It gives them a sense of belonging that doesn't feel like ownership. And in that space, love stops being something they fear. It becomes something they cherish. A living, breathing partnership where both people are free to be themselves and still deeply intertwined. When that happens, the avoidant finally feels what their soul has always craved, connection without captivity. And that's when they start to love with their whole heart, freely, fully, and forever. Consistency in silent love is one of the most misunderstood but powerful ways an avoidant expresses their devotion. To the outside world, their love may appear quiet, restrained, or even distant, but beneath that calm exterior is an unwavering current of loyalty. Avoidants are not the kind to express love through dramatic words or grand gestures. They express it through endurance, through their decision to remain connected even when it's hard for them. When they care, they show it in subtle ways, by remembering the smallest details about you, by returning after distance, by making sure that even in silence you feel their presence. Their love is not loud because it's not about attention. It's about stability. Brute for an avoidant. Silence is not always absence. It's often their way of processing emotion. When they pull away, it's not always because they've stopped caring. It's because they're trying to calm the noise inside. They need to feel centered again before they can re-engage. What's remarkable is that, despite this internal struggle, they find ways to stay tethered to the ones they love. They may not reach out every day, but they keep you in their orbit. They'll watch over you quietly, Pond when it truly matters, or check in when you least expect it. Those small, almost invisible gestures are how they say, I haven't forgotten you. Consistency, for them, is not about constant presence. It's about reliable reappearance. It's about showing up time after time, even after pulling back. That pattern of returning is sacred. It means they care enough to face their discomfort, to override their instinct to flee and to re-enter connection. It's not easy for them, and every time they do it, it's an act of love. When they return, they're saying, you matter more than my fear. That's not inconsistency. That's devotion in progress. You'll also see their consistency in how they support you when you're in need. They may not be the ones to shower you with comforting words, but they'll help you in practical ways. They'll fix something, handle something, or take care of what needs to be done, quietly, effectively, without needing acknowledgement. That's their love language. They express care through reliability, not romance. They may not verbalize their emotions, but their actions consistently reveal their heart. Over time, their consistency builds trust. Even if their communication style is different, their pattern becomes predictable in the best way. You learn that they'll always find their way back, that their silence isn't a void but a pause. That realization brings peace, because you start to understand that their love doesn't live in constant expression, it lives in continuity. Their presence may ebb and flow, but the current of love underneath never stops moving. Their silent love also shows in how they observe you deeply. They notice things you don't think they do. Your tone, your energy, your moods. They may not always comment, but they adjust their behavior in response. If you're stressed, they'll give you space. If you're hurt, they'll approach gently. That quiet attunement is how they stay connected without words. Their silence, when rooted in care, is never cold. It's protective. It's their way of keeping harmony when words might complicate things. This kind of love requires patience to recognize, but once you do, you realize how profound it is. It's the kind of love that doesn't burn fast and fade. It endures. It's the kind that keeps showing up quietly, faithfully, no matter how much time passes. Because when an avoidant loves, they love through steadiness. They might not say, I'll never leave, but they prove it in how they keep returning. Their consistency becomes their commitment. Even when they struggle to express it, they anchor you with reliability. And though their love may not be loud, it's deeply sincere. It's the kind of love that doesn't ask for recognition, that doesn't demand constant validation. It simply exists, strong and still, like an unseen heartbeat beneath the surface. And when you finally learn to feel that rhythm, you realize that their silence was never emptiness. It was love, speaking in the ONL. Ye language it knows, patience, presence, and peace. When an avoidant starts to see you as home, rather than a threat, everything changes. Their entire emotional system begins to soften. The walls they've built over the years, the ones they thought would protect them from pain, start to come down. They begin to feel something they haven't felt in a very long time, safety and connection. You become a space where their nervous system can rest, not a battlefield where they have to defend their freedom. This is the moment when an avoidant begins to attach deeply, quietly, and for the long haul, because for them, Love isn't about excitement or intensity. It's about peace. It's about feeling that they can breathe around you without fearing they'll lose themselves. Avoidants have spent much of their lives associating closeness with danger. Somewhere in their story, connection meant pain. It meant judgment, rejection, or suffocation. So they learned to protect themselves by distancing, by controlling how much they reveal, by staying emotionally self-sufficient. But deep down, every avoidant longs for one thing, a place where they don't have to be on guard. When they find that in someone who doesn't demand, doesn't pressure, doesn't make love feel like a performance, they start to relax into the relationship. That's when love becomes healing instead of haunting. Marie, when they begin to see you as home, they start to behave differently. Their presence becomes more consistent, their energy calmer. They might still need space, but they no longer use that space to run away. They use it to recharge so they can return stronger. They start to initiate contact more, not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. They check in, they stay present, they start making room for you in their world. They might not declare it openly, but everything about the way they show up says, "You're safe from me," and that's not something they give lightly. This shift also changes the way they communicate. Where once they might have shut down during conflict or gone silent when emotions ran high, they start to engage instead. They start to share their thoughts, their fears, their truths. Not perfectly, but honestly. That's a sign that they no longer see you as a threat to their inner peace. They see you as a partner, someone who can handle their truth without turning it into a weapon. They start to trust that they can be human with you. Flawed, emotional, imperfect, and still be accepted. Being home to an avoidant doesn't mean you've made them dependent. It means you've helped them feel free within love. That's a rare gift, because love for them used to feel like something they needed to escape to remember who they are. But now, with you, they can be fully themselves, independent yet connected, strong yet vulnerable. You've become the one person who doesn't demand their heart but inspires them to offer it willingly. That's not control. That's connection rooted in mutual respect and understanding. When an avoidant reaches this level of emotional safety, their love becomes deep and unwavering. They stop testing your loyalty. They stop fearing abandonment. Instead, they begin to invest. They start building a future, not out of obligation, but out of peace. You'll see it in their actions, in the way they include you in decisions, in the way they make long-term plans, and how they start to use words like we instead of I. It's subtle, but it's everything. It means they're no longer protecting themselves from love. They're protecting love itself. In their eyes, you become more than a partner. You become their calm in a world that once felt unsafe. And that's when you realize something profound. Their love may not have started with fireworks, but it's ending with roots. Deep, grounded, enduring roots. When they see you as home, it's not a temporary comfort, it's a lifelong commitment. You've become the one place where they can rest, rebuild, and return again and again. Not because they have to, but because they want to. That's when you know an avoidant truly loves you. That's when you know they want you, quietly but forever. When we talk about love, we often think of fireworks, passion, intensity, endless words and gestures. But the truth is, the deepest love doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. It hides in consistency, in calmness, in the quiet choice to stay when leaving would be easier. That's the love of the avoidant. It's not about saying the right thing or showing emotion perfectly. It's about courage. The courage to feel again after years of self-protection. The courage to trust when trust once felt impossible. If you've ever loved an avoidant, you know it's not an easy journey. You've probably felt the silence, the distance, the moments of doubt. But behind that silence, there's a heart that feels everything. Deeply, silently, powerfully. And when that heart finally lets you in, when they stop running, when they begin to stay, you're witnessing something sacred. You're witnessing transformation. You're witnessing love in its most authentic, unfiltered form. Love that's not driven by need, but by truth. An avoidant who chooses you forever doesn't just want a relationship. They want peace with you. They want the kind of connection where they can be fully themselves, free, safe, understood. Their love might not always look like the movies, but it's real, it's loyal, and it's built to last. Because when they finally give their heart, they give it for life. They love in silence, but they love with soul, and in that stillness, their love becomes timeless. So if you are the one they chose, honor that. Don't chase, don't pressure, don't try to mold them. Just keep being the place where they feel safe to land. Because love like that doesn't come from fear, it comes from growth. And when they've grown enough to see you not as a threat but as home, you've already become the one thing they never thought. They could have. Peace and love. Brewer. Thank you for listening, for opening your heart, and for showing up for this message. Remember, love isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about seeing someone for who they truly are and still choosing to stay. Whether you're the avoidant learning to open up or the one loving them through their walls, you are part of something extraordinary. You are part of love's highest purpose, to heal, to transform, and to bring two souls closer to truth. Brewer. Stay strong, stay patient, stay grounded in compassion, because the love that grows slowly, the love that chooses peace over drama, the love that survives silence, that's the kind of love that lasts forever. Thank you, and until next time, take care of your heart, nurture your peace, and remember, real love doesn't chase. It understands, it trusts, and it stays.